Let's move on and let's talk about your
This is not
Michigan Wolverines now.
Yeah.
Michigan was 8-5 a year ago. They've got an 8.5 over/under this season. They also are one of the teams that you and I tend to disagree the most on this year.
This is true.
You've got Michigan 4th in the conference. I think I've got them all the way down at 7th. But the margin between 4 and 7, with the way that we talked it through on part 1, was very, very thin. This is not to say Michigan's going to be a bad team. This is just to say that, the way things work out, I favored some of those other teams finishing higher.
Beat Ohio State and Alabama to finish your season and tie Shania Twain's with that don't impress him much.
I didn't say it didn't impress me. It actually impressed me a lot.
7th place.
I still can't figure out how the hell they beat Ohio State, so I got to give them a lot of credit for that.
A timely interception at a very good part of the field.
I guess, but man, that upset to me, we did the episode this offseason talking through like an upset bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't that one win? I think that one won.
Yeah, of course.
It was preposterous that they would win that game, but they did.
Yeah.
And kudos to them for figuring out a way to do it on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, last season was not a typical Michigan season. And it was just so easy to dunk on the offense. They had zero passing attack. It made the running game very predictable and telegraphed.
No, they had a one-player passing attack. He played tight end, and the hope was that he was healthy, and he could always get open. He could always make catches. But beyond that, you're right.
But what I like about this team, and what I think we saw in full display clearly in that Ohio State game, to quote the wise prophet, Dr. Ian Malcolm, I don't know if you've got the sound, Dan. Do you have the sound?
I think I do. Do you want me to play it first?
Play it right now.
I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
Sherrone Moore found a way, Dan. Found a way to get to 7 wins.
True.
Found a way to beat USC in the regular season, to beat Alabama in the bowl, obviously to beat Ohio State in the biggest game of the year. Building off of that now, Michigan's got some real, I think, wind at its back. This is a team that undeniably is better now than they were a year ago. There are a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Which we got to talk through. But this is a team that, again, is going to be loaded by a defense, or let's say led by a defense that's loaded in the front 7.
It seems to be that way, yeah.
And ultimately, we're going to have to determine the ceiling based on how long it takes the offense to get sorted out. That's the general vibe, I think, of this Michigan team.
Agree.
Let's start with quarterback, though. Last season, the musical chairs at quarterback were very, very difficult to watch, I would imagine, if you're a Michigan fan, because it just was not happening with any of them. You had one guy who got hurt, another guy who couldn't throw. It just seemed like it was never going to come together, and it was frustrating to watch. This year now, they went out, they get Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood's a top overall recruit. He's an in-state kid. For a moment, looked like he was going elsewhere. They flipped him back to Michigan, and now he is all the rage.
Mm-hmm.
The comparison that we heard when we had Brendan Huffman on this show was Vince Young.
Okay.
Which is a pretty high bar to clear. That's a pretty high bar to clear.
I think it was more physically what he could be because he's so physically mature.
Even still.
Yeah.
Even still, if the biggest source of optimism, I think, this year for Michigan has to be Bryce Underwood. He's basically gotten all the first-team reps. You've seen the pictures of him out there. He's a full-on man. And if Vince Young is a comparison, even if it's just on the physical side of things, you'll take that. Given where coming from Alex Orji and Davis Warren, you'll take a Vince Young prototype.
Sure.
Why do you feel so good about this team? Because I've got him at 8-4, which I don't think is bad given the schedule and given the circumstances. But
right.
You've got Michigan as your 4th best team in the Big Ten. Why?
It's just sort of process of elimination. I think the defense is going to be very good, especially up front, like you talked about, with not a ton of experience along the defensive line, but they've recruited there well. They've portaled in there well. There's experience at linebacker. Not a ton of experience in the secondary. I think it's Jair Hill had sort of an up and down year at corner. Rod Moore comes back. He was hurt last year. And I don't know. There's continuity on defense enough to the point where I feel better about Michigan's defense than either side of the ball of teams like, for you, Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana, stuff like that. So I'm just comparing against who else could fit into that spot. Offensively, new look offensive line, bring in some portal guys at running back and receiver. I don't think they're going to be humongous difference makers at receiver, but I think it'll be an upgrade. I'm not counting on a ton from Bryce Underwood.
No?
If he starts the season at quarterback. I think it's unfair to do that to true freshmen. We see this year in and year out. Like, even the good ones, even the really good ones, Trevor Lawrence, whoever you want to say, Sam Howell at North Carolina. Sam Howell had growing pains, and he had, I think, a roster around him that was better, a rushing attack that was probably better and going to give him more time and room to maneuver. Michigan, what is this offense going to look like under a new coordinator in Chip Lindsey, right? So you have like the preferred smash ball, hardball of Sherrone Moore, coupled with a dual threat in Bryce Underwood, who has no experience, and you don't have the depth at, say, experience at tight end or along the offensive line. How are you going to marry a more green, questionable offensive line with a preferred style of play? It can either go really, really well, that you're sticking with your vision through thick and thin, or you're stubborn and you're not putting your players in the best position to win given their skill set.
Right.
That's the challenge that Chip Lindsey has right now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about new questions for the offensive line, new questions for quarterback, new questions for skill talent. And yet, I still feel pretty good, all things considered, because of this defense. That they can win a bunch of games ugly, that they can complete 3rd and 7s to tight ends, which they couldn't always do last year, that if those offensive linemen, and I think there's a couple portal additions, they've recruited offensive line, which of course they have really well, that they can start to dictate. I don't know if it'll happen at Oklahoma. That's on the road. I don't think it's going to happen there. But I think come October 1, if the offensive line comes together, which I think it should be able to do, with some sort of mix of experience, youth, and portal, then things open up for Michigan. You get a little more experience at quarterback, whether or not it's Mikey Keene, who didn't play in the spring, some sort of undisclosed upper body injury. We've all had undisclosed upper body injuries, Ty. I just think it's unfair to put it on Bryce Underwood. Be like, yep, we're paying you all this money, and we need you to play like a third-year starting quarterback. So I don't have them competing with the best of the conference, but I still feel like they're in a gray area between the best of the conference and teams that are just not fielding a side of the ball that are immediately obvious to me that are as good as what Michigan's defense could be.
I mean, on the point of the offensive line, I think it's a really good one. And the quarterback play obviously gets a lot of the attention from last year because there just was no passing game. But statistically, the running game sort of took a step back too. And that was a function of the offensive line. The offensive line didn't just collapse out of nowhere. This was basically an entirely new unit last year because the previous guys went, like 6 guys went to the NFL from the offensive line. So the running game takes a step back. The passing offense, non-existent. That, I think, has set the stage now for where we find ourselves in 2025, which is new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey, who's going to try to blend some of the power stuff with the spread stuff, new quarterback in Bryce Underwood, draw whatever comparison you want. The risk to me, though, in addition to all those new names, this is a schedule that if the offense can't get going quickly enough, granted the defense is still in place, I don't think a 3-4 start is totally off the table.
Walk me through it.
I mean, road games at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, and at USC are all losable.
Okay.
I think Washington is also a losable game, though that one is at home.
They lost last year. Yeah.
Lost that one last year. That takes you through like the first 7 games of the season. If you go beyond that, you've got a Michigan State game, which is a rivalry. They should be better than Michigan State, but Michigan State played them tight last year. The very next week, again, is that Michigan State game after Washington, so who knows? And then I think they probably lose later in the year to Ohio State. I think this is the year Ohio State gets one up on them. So that's where I come down on this team. I don't know exactly how it ends up stacking up. I'm not expecting the 3-4 start. I'm just saying, given what they've got here, I could probably make a case for it. I still think it's an 8-4 team. I think it's an 8-4 team that's way better on offense. I don't yet think they're a real contender for the conference, but you could absolutely convince me that they're, 4th, 5th best team in the conference. I would have no trouble believing that.
I do kind of hate the idea of a true freshman starting. as much as
Well-
like you're paying for Bryce Underwood to play football though, right? If you're a Michigan booster, if you're the Michigan pro, like I don't love that. I'd much rather him start sometime in October and give this to Mikey Keene immediately.
Well,
Just give him mental reps.
listen,
I don't know.
he's the guy they're rolling with and the guy they're excited about. And if you've got a talent like that, we're also not there in practice seeing what this guy
That's
can
true.
do. And based on those reports, everybody is pretty convinced that Bryce Underwood is the truth. So we'll see what he can do, but he's going to have his work cut out for him because I don't think it's an easy start to the schedule.
No, not at all. No, I like Michigan this year. I do like Michigan. I don't love them. I'm exceedingly curious to see what their plan is against Oklahoma in, what is that, week 2?
Week 2 on the road.
Depends who's starting. It depends, what kind of leash does Bryce Underwood have? How open is that playbook? How sort of trusted is he to take shots downfield?
Yeah.
Like, who are you counting on to take shots downfield too? Donovan McCulley left the Indiana program after a month last year. Good. Tall guy. Who are those guys?
Tall guy. Yeah.
He's a tall guy. He's like 6'5".
Yeah.
You can fact check me on that, by the way, after this show has gotten some heights wrong.
I think 6'4" is the number that comes to mind. But
6'4".
that's pretty close.
Tall enough.